Do you hear me? Do you hear me? Sorry, we continue the show. You know what? We have heard amazing leaders when it comes to the role of boards. And we were wondering, do you hear me well? Yes? So I'm going to do a little trick here. Do you know on which stage we are? Yes? It's the legacy stage. And when we talk about the role of boards, it's about the legacy we want to have. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to call a friend, right? Because understanding what's please for the next speakers may take a seat. I'm going to call a friend from the next generation that I love, and I want to make sure that we capture together what she has to say to us. Hi! Do you hear me? Do you hear me, Clover? I'm at Tinge now. I would love to get your perspective.
I'm actually backstage at the Grand Palais, so
oh, no,
why
you're
don't I just come to
kidding.
you?
You're kidding, Clover. Come on stage with me. I want to hear you right now. Hello! Please take a seat. Thank you so much, Clover. We could not do a session on the board without the next generation. This was not possible. So this is why you are here with us. So, Clover, when it comes to the board, what is your voice and what is your expectations towards those boards?
Well, it's funny being here in Paris with you all because I was actually here 10 years ago for COP21 for the Paris Agreement. I was a 16-year-old student activist back then. And I remember going into COP21 with this kind of starry-eyed optimism, right? All of my activism had been at the grassroots, and I felt, finally, I'm going to be at the decision-making table where the adults are, and they're going to show up and solve this problem. And yet, the picture in my mind didn't really match up with reality. When I arrived at COP, instead of meeting inspiring world leaders, I met plenty of calculating policymakers who were expert in making commitments so far into the future they required no immediate action. No, I'm just giving some context. And you know, I'd never seen greenwashing at such a kind of unapologetic scale either. And so I wish that I could look back now and tell my younger, more skeptical self that I was wrong. But unfortunately, I think we've really seen an absence of courage and leadership when it comes to corporations and when it comes to boards. So the short answer, I suppose, would be I would want to see more courage, and I would want to see boards and leaders who are acting from a place of legacy, but unfortunately that's not what we're seeing at the minute.
That's why we are on the legacy stage. Boards needs to be more vocal, as we were saying. So how can boards help you believe in themselves? So when I say believe in themselves, it's not about believing in boards, but what is the role of boards for the future generations?
Well, I think a lot of people are still treating sustainability as a kind of tick-boxing activity or a nice to have. And the science is really unequivocal, right? For the first time in history last year, we surpassed the 1.5 degree heating point, which was established in the Paris Agreement. We've now surpassed 6 out of 9 planetary boundaries. So I would like to see boards actually acting not from this place of kind of fantasy, but actually responding to the science. You know, we would see a very different corporate landscape and boardroom landscape if people educated themselves on what's happening.
We were discussing about education. It's true that we were, and Paul was saying, have a seat for the next generation, have the seat for Mother Earth at the table, but we could also have a seat for the science.
Yeah, I mean, you can't argue with science. Unfortunately, a lot of people are deluding themselves that you can pretend that what's happening isn't happening, or I think so many people in business are really, really good at putting their heads in the sand. And I think what was really interesting is that in the wake of the 2016 presidential election, there are so many leaders who said, well, even though Trump is pulling out of the Paris Agreement, we're still in, right? And unfortunately, in this most recent election, just look at Trump's inauguration photo. Like, all of the tech CEOs are there, all of the billionaires are there. They're no longer acting on sustainability and climate because there isn't this momentum and it's no longer cool, right? And so we need leadership to actually happen when it is difficult. And I think the fossil fuel industry is throwing everything they possibly can to delay action. The fossil fuel industry funded the Trump administration to the tune of $75 million during his campaign, right? There's that quote, first they ignore you, then they laugh at you, then they fight you, and then you win.
So beyond the geopolitical tensions that we are living in, how can the next generation, as you, Clover, help boards to become stewards for better futures? How can you help?
Well, I would say that I think young people, we're often called radical, but what we're asking for really isn't that radical if you think about it. Like, young people are asking for the right to clean air, the right to clean water, to have a say in the decisions that are ultimately affecting my future and our future. That isn't that radical. We've been made to believe that it's radical. And so boards need to have young people at the table to actually hold them to account and to hear not just the moral courage of young people, but their capacity to imagine how we might do things differently. Young people are so good throughout all of the movements, civil rights, anti-apartheid, the suffragette movement, young people are capable of not just asking why is the system the way that it is, but what if we did things really differently? And that what if question is what we need to be focusing on now.
I love the what if question. I'm a what if person. And maybe one last question is that what truly counts from your perspective in terms of leadership for the boardroom?
When I've worked with boards and they've told me they really care about climate, they want to take action, typically it's not because they've read the IPCC report or even because they went to COP, but because their kids came home to them at the end of the day and asked, Mom, Dad, what are you doing about the climate crisis? And so it is that question of legacy. So many business leaders work their entire lives climbing the corporate ladder to be able to provide for their families, and yet they're now at that pinnacle looking back and saying, okay, but what is the world that my kids are inheriting? And so that question of what you're actually leaving behind, realizing that you're part of this lineage, I think that can be the clarifying question for boards.
This is so true. What do you want to be your legacy to be? And myself, when I work so hard and when in challenging times, I'm always telling to myself that in 10 years from now, I want to look at my kids' eyes and say that I've done everything I could at a time that it really matters. Thank you, Clover, for being with us.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.